I didn't cry the night she threw me out, but I did sit in my car for an hour, watching the lights of the house I'd helped renovate flicker off, one by one, until it was just her silhouette by the window, arms folded, unmoved. "You'll land on your feet," she'd said, with the same tone she used when canceling a dinner reservation. And just like that, 15 years of marriage vanished like chalk dust. I drove with no plan, no destination, and nowhere to go. The only call I made that night was to my college buddy, Ray. He didn't ask questions, just gave me the code to his apartment and told me the couch was mine. It was lumpy and smelled faintly of takeout and gym socks, but I would have slept on concrete that night and still been grateful. Divorce makes you question the shape of everything: your name, your worth, your future, especially when you leave with nothing. No house, no savings, no car. It was in her name. No friends. Most of them were hers anyway. Just two garbage bags filled with clothes and the contents of one drawer from the home office. She said, "I didn't use enough to justify keeping." She was right about one thing. I had failed. Not at love, but at seeing who she really was before it was too late. The real blow wasn't the betrayal, it was how easy it was for her, how cleanly she'd erased me from her story, right down to telling the judge I never contributed emotionally or financially. I couldn't afford a lawyer to fight it. She could, and did. For weeks, I lived on that couch, applying for jobs I was overqualified for, eating toast for dinner, and trying not to take it personally when even grocery stores didn't call me back. I shaved less, talked less, slept too much. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted my life to mean something again. Then one night, I was digging through my old wallet, more out of boredom than purpose, when I found a worn, faded envelope tucked behind an expired Costco card. My name was scrawled on it in my mother's handwriting. She'd passed away 6 years ago. We weren't rich. She'd worked 2 jobs and still managed to tuck $5 into my lunchbox in high school, like it was magic. Inside the envelope was a debit card. I stared at it, confused. It was from a private bank, one I didn't recognize. On the back, a small sticky note. "If things ever get truly hard. Love, Mom." I almost laughed. I'd found it at my lowest point, but I couldn't imagine there was more than a few $100s on it. Still, I hadn't eaten anything that day, and curiosity was louder than pride. So the next morning, I walked into the bank. It was in the nicer part of town, all marble floors and fresh-cut flowers by the teller desk. I felt out of place, like a shadow in someone else's life. I handed the card to the woman at the counter. She scanned it, then stopped. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her eyes flicked up at me. "Just a moment, sir," she said, standing. She walked into the back and came out moments later with a sharply dressed man, mid-40s, graying at the temples. He looked at the card, then at me. "Mr. Ellison?" he asked carefully. I nodded. "Yes!" He leaned in slightly, lowered his voice. "Sir, I need you to come with me, now, please." "Why?" I asked, startled. He didn't answer, just pointed toward a frosted glass office. My chest tightened. For a second, I thought maybe the card was tied to something illegal, a scam, a mistake. But once we were inside, he shut the door gently and said 6 words that would change my life. "You need to see this balance." He turned the screen toward me, and I forgot how to breathe. I stared at the screen, then back at the banker. There's no way this is real," I whispered. But the numbers didn't blink. 8 zeros, and 2 digits in front. $48,379,112.29. Not cents. Not a mistake. $48 million. Sitting in an account under my name. The banker, his name was Leonard, watched my face with polite neutrality, but I could see his fingers twitch, like he wasn't sure whether to offer me a glass of water or call a paramedic. "This account was opened by Margaret Ellison," he said gently. "Your mother, 15 years ago. I sank into the leather chair. My knees were trembling. She was a secretary, worked 2 jobs. I murmured. She never owned property, never had anything. Leonard gave a sympathetic smile. Sir, she didn't own a property, but she invested in one. He typed something on the screen and turned it again. A file appeared. Scans of old share certificates, letters, purchase agreements. She was an early investor in Lorne Technologies, 2008. They hadn't even gone public yet. She put in $10,000 at the time, scraped it together, I imagine, but when they IPO'd, and later when they were acquired, he let out a low whistle. Her shares exploded in value. I blinked hard. She never told me. She set the account to stay frozen until you walked in with this card. Her exact words were, "He won't come unless life squeezed every drop out of him, and when that happens, I want him to know he was never alone." I couldn't hold it in anymore. I buried my face in my hands and cried. It wasn't just the money, it was the memory of her packing my lunch with notes tucked inside, the way she called me champ even when I failed, the years she worked past midnight and still made it to my school plays, and the quiet, selfless way she planned for a day she'd never live to see. Later that night, I sat on Ray's couch again, only now I was a multimillionaire in a room that smelled like garlic knots. "I thought you said she was broke," Ray said, holding the bank document like it was radioactive. "She was," I replied, still stunned, "but she believed in something, and she believed in me." He shook his head. "So what now? You gonna buy a mansion? Leave town? Disappear on a yacht?" I laughed once. Dry, empty. "I don't know yet." But I knew what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't flaunt it. I wouldn't gloat. I wouldn't turn into the kind of person my ex-wife had become. Instead, I began to plan, not revenge, not yet, but a return, to dignity, to purpose, to becoming the kind of man my mother had invested in. The next morning, I met with a financial advisor, quietly set up a holding company under a generic name, transferred the funds, disappeared from the paper trail. My ex didn't know. Her lawyer didn't know. The world still thought I was a failed husband who'd lost everything. And I let them. Because while they were laughing over champagne and talking about their new vacation home, I was buying the building it was in. And I wasn't done yet, because 6 months later, I found out that the investment firm my ex-wife worked for had just been acquired by a holding company, mine. The restaurant she chose was predictable, expensive, ostentatious, shallow, just like the kind of crowd she'd surrounded herself with since the divorce. A valet opened my car door with unnecessary flourish, clearly trying not to wrinkle his vest against the Tesla I had rented. Not because I needed to, I could have pulled up in a Maybach if I wanted, but because I wanted to remain invisible just a little longer. My reservation was under the name Daniel Shaw, a name the restaurant manager repeated with a slight bow as he led me to the private dining room. Dim lighting, an open view of the city, and gold-rimmed plates already laid out. My ex-wife, Harper, had always preferred her surroundings to look more successful than the people in them. She walked in 5 minutes later, holding the arm of a man I recognized from industry magazines, Martin Keel, a VP at the investment firm she'd clung to since our divorce. She looked polished. Same cold elegance, different designer necklace. When her eyes landed on me, there was a flash of hesitation, then calculation. "Mark," she said, surprised. "You got the invite?" I smiled, deliberately simple. "Didn't think I'd miss the celebration dinner. You said in the email it was to honor the firm's new ownership." Martin extended a hand, offering me a tightly rehearsed grin. "And what exactly do you do, Mark?" "I was married to Harper," I said lightly, shaking his hand. "Now, a little of this, a little of that." I watched Harper's mouth twitch, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. She hated vagueness, always saw it as weakness. That hadn't changed. Dinner went on. They toasted to new beginnings, corporate acquisitions, growth strategies. Harper laughed too loudly at Martin's jokes, her hand always just a second too slow to withdraw from his. I mostly kept quiet, sipping water, listening. Then came dessert, and with it, the real toast. Martin stood, glass in hand. "To Harper," he said, "for surviving the worst of marriages." My fingers gripped the silverware, and landing at the top of the world. A new firm, a new future, and hopefully, a promotion once this merger is finalized. He winked. Harper beamed. "I guess all she needed," he added with a smirk, "was to stop dragging dead weight." My ex laughed. That's when I set my fork down, slowly. "Mind if I say something, Bap?" I asked. Martin waved indulgently. "Sure. I love hearing from the underdog." I stood. "I just wanted to thank you both, truly, for making this easier." Harper arched a brow. "Making what easier?" "Letting go of the idea that I ever needed to explain myself." I reached into my blazer and pulled out a thin folder, the same kind used for NDAs. "You're about to work under a new management team. Harper, you'll probably want to check the board of directors update next week." She tilted her head. "Why would I?" I turned to Martin. "Because as of last quarter, your firm was acquired by Kestrel Holdings." He blinked. "That name sounds familiar." I nodded. "It should. I own it." Silence. Then Harper let out a breathless laugh as if I had made a joke. "You?" she said, her voice rising an octave. "You own Kestrel?" "I do, and I never wanted to be the kind of man who needed to prove that, but tonight reminded me." I looked at Martin. "You don't insult the people who built your world while they're sitting across the table from you." The manager approached. "Mr. Shaw, the car is ready." Harper stared at me, her lips parted but silent. Her laugh was gone. Martin said nothing. "Oh, and Harper," I said before leaving, "there's a new compliance clause being added to all department leads next month." She looked up confused. "No personal relationships with direct managers." I smiled gently. "Might want to get your resume ready." Then I walked out. The same man they dismissed. The man with an envelope, a quiet plan, and nothing left to prove. The headlines came quietly. There were no scandals, no big exposés, just a string of subtle public updates. Kestrel Holdings finalizes majority acquisition of Camden Keel Investments. Then, a week later, new board, restructuring underway, following strategic buyout. No names were mentioned, but everyone in the industry knew what it meant. Someone big had entered the room. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. 3 days after the dinner, Harper showed up at my apartment. It was the same place I'd moved into after the divorce. A modest walk-up, nothing fancy. I could have bought a penthouse overlooking the river. Hell, I could have bought the entire building. But I didn't want flash. I wanted space to breathe. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not in stature, in certainty. Like her heels weren't clicking as confidently on the stairs this time. "Mark," she said, a little breathless, "can we talk?" I stepped aside, silent. Let her walk past the unpacked books, the worn leather couch she once made fun of, the framed photo of my mother by the windowsill. "I didn't know," she said. "I swear, I didn't know who you really were." I nodded slowly. "That's because you never asked." She swallowed, her voice faltering. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You never married me to know me," I said, calm but clear. "You married me to fix me, or mold me, into something you could display." She sat down, her hands in her lap. I thought we were building something." "No, Harper. I was building something. You were measuring it." Silence. Then, softly, she asked, "Was anything real?" I looked out the window. The city was glowing in the early dusk, golden light bouncing off rooftops like a quiet benediction. Yes, I said. I loved you. I believed in us. Even when I had more than you knew, I wanted to live simply, to see if love could survive when it wasn't fed with labels or luxury. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move. She tried to smile through them. You could still give us another chance. We could start over. I'd do things differently now. I see it all so clearly. I turned to her, gently but firmly. It's not about starting over. It's about who we are when we don't know what's coming. And who she had been, that night, laughing as someone mocked the man she once vowed to love, wasn't someone I could forget. I don't hate you, I said, but I won't walk backward. Harper stood slowly, gathering her coat. She paused at the door. I always thought you were hiding something, she said, almost to herself. I was, I replied, but not what you feared, just the parts of me you never bothered to look for. She left without another word. A month later, Kestrel Holdings completed its board restructuring. Martin was quietly moved to a consulting role. Harper resigned. She was offered a severance package and a letter of recommendation. I made sure of that. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted her to face herself. I hired a new director of ethics, a woman who reminded me of my mother, sharp, quiet, and kind. She brought coffee to the janitors every morning and knew the names of every front desk employee. At the next board meeting, I sat in the corner of the room. I still didn't use my name much. They called me Mr. Shaw, a ghost who signed their paychecks and watched from the shadows. But this time, I wasn't invisible. I was the architect of my own peace. 1 year later, I visited my mother's grave. I brought flowers, her favorite lilies, and sat beside the stone in the warm spring air. Mom, I said softly, I used the card you left me. It opened more than an account. It opened my eyes. I paused. And don't worry, I stayed humble, even when they tried to drag me down. Wind rustled through the nearby trees. I swear I could hear her laugh in it. I smiled, not because I won, but because I'd finally learned what winning really meant. It was a quiet afternoon in late fall when the letter arrived. Cream-colored envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting instantly. Careful, elegant, trying too hard not to shake. Harper. Inside was a short note, no begging, no manipulation. Just this. Mark, I saw the article in Business Today. They said Kestrel Holdings was named one of the top ethical investment firms in the country. They also said the new founder insists on remaining anonymous. But I knew. I always knew, in the end. I don't expect a reply, but for what it's worth, I was wrong. About who you were, and about who I was. I hope you're at peace now, truly. Harper. I folded the letter and placed it in the old wooden box my mother left me, next to the card, the one that started everything. In the end, Harper lost more than she realized. Not the money, she never had that. Not the company, that was never hers to build. She lost the chance to know someone, to sit beside a man who would have given her the world if she'd only loved the heart of it, not just the surface. But I didn't hate her. The older I got, the more I understood that people like her don't know how to love anything that doesn't shine, until it's too late. I visited the diner now and then, the one where I used to take her when we had nothing but shared fries and long walks home. Same waitress, same worn booths. I always tipped double. Sometimes I'd watch the young couples by the window. Some of them laughed like nothing could ever go wrong. Others looked away when the bill came, and I thought, I hope they learn before it costs them what I paid to find out. There's a photo on my desk now. It's not of a company or a penthouse or a party full of empty compliments. It's of my mom, standing in the field behind our old house, sun behind her like a crown. She taught me that value isn't something you wear. It's something you build quietly, brick by brick, word by word, choice by choice. And when the world finally sees it,
It's already too late to fake it. Harper's world was built on the illusion of more, mine, on the memory of enough. And that's the legacy I carry forward. Not revenge, but truth, earned and never sold. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Or should the storm have raged harder? Drop your verdict below. I read every single one. Hit like if you crave justice, and share this story with someone who needs its fire. Subscribe to Lauren's story. Because here, betrayals don't sleep. They hunt their owners. Every shadow hides a reckoning. Every mask breaks, and every betrayal is answered. Stay sharp, stay unbroken, stay tuned.